know the whole point of my channel is to just shoot the shit about whatever random metal related thought has been crossing my mind of late, but this one might be pushing even my tolerance for insignificant nerding out. This is one which I knew I was going to talk about at some point, but I wasn't expecting it to be this soon. It just keeps coming up and the words flow when I'm having a I would have liked this but it sounds kinda lame experience twice a week. I want to talk about a specific production trend in a specific genre and why I specifically have a problem with it even though seemingly nobody else does. Yes, this is petty. Yes, this is irrelevant. Yes, the bands that are doing it seem to be doing just fine with no complaints. If anything, they're more popular than ones who don't do it. But also, yes, this makes me write off dozens of otherwise good bands I would have been into if they sounded slightly different every single year. There's something off about the modern old school death metal tone. I never really seen anyone else bring it up, but since around 2017 or 18, a huge portion of the bands in the style have been using a specific kind of distortion, and I have an irrational, yet intense hatred of it. I've tended to call it the tomb mold tone, but now with them going full space prog death and using a tone suitable for that, using that name could be confusing. So I don't know, modern, retro, old school death metal tone? Oh god, this video is going to be a mess. After the early and mid-2000s got way ahead of themselves with digital precision, the old heads of the time fought back against the slickly produced robots with a bunch of dirty, old-fashioned death metal. The genre quickly learned a bunch of lessons to live by. Use lots of distortion, use lots of reverb, never use clicky bass triggers. Noise bleed is good, jabby precision is bad. The list goes on. It could be a little cheap and nasty, or be awfully mixed, but the rules were understood and things were good in the world. This new tone technically abides by this mantra.
Technically correct. The best kind of correct.
But something's off. It's not way off the mark, but it's enough that it instantly drops my views on any album using it by a solid 2 or 3 marks. It's insidious. I can't point out any specific thing that it outright doesn't do, it just does them wrong. Like the distortion is there, everything buzzes as it should, but it's lacking a sharpness in the string vibration. It's tuned low enough to provide the requisite density of sound, but it doesn't feel particularly thick during churning tremolos or bludgeoning during chuggier parts. When I started hearing this, I thought it must have been a direct input thing, or a preset on a popular DAW, or something like that due to the sudden influx of it now. But I've spoken to an artist who actually made stuff with this, and they assured me that it's mics and amps, so I have no idea what's actually causing it, but it stands out like a sore thumb when I hear it. So what is it anyway? It's like the distortion fuzz has been evened out so it doesn't have as much of a dramatic modulation in the string vibration as the early 2010 stuff. It's not simply brickwalling, since, let's be honest, all the older stuff was brickwalled to hell too. It's like brickwalling on a zoomed in level on the guitar tone specifically, but smooth and even instead of loud and brash. I'm not a musician. The only song I can vaguely play is Incantation's Abolishment of Immaculate Serenity, and that song is literally one simple power chord chugged slowly the whole way through. So I really don't have the technical knowledge or language to explain it clearly. So we're going to be utilising direct side-by-side comparisons to cover for my incompetence. Here's one from 2009, which sounds excellent. And here's one from 2017, which doesn't hit the same way. Both are blasted, chromatic tremolo riffs in a similar style and tempo, both by competent bands which know how to play their instruments. But the Funebrarium one makes each of the fret hops dramatically tear apart from one another, giving each transition infinitely more aggression and intensity. It grinds more, for the lack of a better term. It's not like the riff itself is a considerably better one or played in a distinctly different manner, it's all in the production. Obviously, there is a difference in the focus of the two sounds. Funebrarium's is a down-the-line attack sequence, while Tomb Mold want to highlight the jangly bass and lead aspects of the riff. Which, you know, fair enough. The album was a huge hit, but it undeniably guts the rhythm impact. And this is death metal. Rhythm impact is the core tenet. But that's just one type of riff. Nothing is perfectly tuned to do everything well. Maybe it excels at other parts of the death metal sound. Here's a couple of doomy hit a chord and let it ring out riffs. Again, first a good one. And now a bad one. The newer stuff definitely fills in the space. It's heavily distorted and as low pitched as it should be. But the smoother reverberation gives the physical impact of a thick gauge string vibrating less prevalence. It also doesn't rise and fall as naturally, with the steady, smooth distortion wall basically coming and going in a nice even flow, whereas the older one has more of a spike and sharper drop-off, giving a more interesting sound movement for something which is effectively one note. Okay, fine, so it doesn't do fast or slow. Maybe it's there for the midpoint. How about we look at some chunky groovers? That one sounds like a goddamn train accident. Said positively, of course. It's barely even worth comparing. It's bullying at this point. After actually sitting these clips side by side for each video, I've had another detail stand out to me in each comparison. There's a lot of room for the bass in these new ones. Now, I'm plenty funky, so I do enjoy some big upfront highlight bass. I like defeated sanity and cryptopsy as much as anyone, but these are all pretty churny and dense bands, and using a bass like that instead of as a backup wall for the guitars lessens the mass of the sound considerably. Fin death, and while it is horribly overstated, incantation are big parts of the throwback death metal sound. I guess in terms of fin death, Demilic were pretty open sounding with lots of upfront twang, but most of the other big hitters used a beefier low end. And again, this modern stuff is basically fin death fed through a New York filter, and New York was all about destructive mass. Well, that's transition attackers, doom breaks, and massive grooves down. What's left? How about just some ripping tremolo slideshows? That's a big part of the modern scene after it tried to step away from the excessively minimalist and dour caverncore wave of the early 2010s. If anything, that's what the new stuff is built for, since that less dense sound and upfront popping bass lets these parts show a bit more detailing and colour. Admittedly, Ignovermis won a beloved sound of the era because it was possibly too dense and chaotic, but goddamn if that isn't storming. Unlike... That Cruciamentum album has more riffs than Time Does Not Heal in less than half the time. It's basically entirely an endless stream of fast and agile riffs. This should be a ripping, high-intensity experience to keep up with the relentless energy of Ignovermis, but instead it's this. Ignovermis is extremely one-note, but at least it rams that one note down your throat. This one feels like it's spinning its wheels and it's just passively asking you to have a look if you don't mind. So I guess my question is, why is this so popular now? It's clearly a conscious choice. It wasn't what this type of music sounded like when bands first tried bringing back the style digitally, so it's not a technological limitation. Maybe it's because so many bands are using fin-deathy spooky leads now, and it shifts into those more easily than something more aggressive. That logic makes sense since it coincided with that shift, but I mean, Funebrara and Sluggerthor were able to do both just fine, so it doesn't seem necessary. To be more cynical, it could be argued that the weakness of it is the point. Some of these bands are the only new old school bands that people listen to, with the lack of teeth making it more palatable for those not after a full dirty death metal experience. However, it does show up in a lot of bands that aren't household names, so I don't think having more crossover with non-genre fans is really that big of a market. Besides that, the bands themselves aren't exactly playing easier music. In theory, I really like all the albums I've sampled here. They're doing the classic thing but with even higher riff counts and the ability to draw from all the classic sounds from all around the world, providing for a more dynamic range of songs. That Funebrara record is straight up a top 10 of all time album for me, specifically because it pairs the aggression of New York and the atmospheric weirdness of Finland. And this new wave is pretty consistently trying to do the same thing. It's exactly the type of thing I gravitate to and I want to be hearing. But I can't enjoy any of it as instinctual physical music. If I'm sitting there in my conservatory, sipping on a cognac, illuminated by the flickering of my open fire, I can put on my analysis dressing gown and appreciate these bands. I can focus on the notes being played and take note of the detailing in the riffs, the structure of the album composition, the care put into the stylistic transitions, and still get something out of the albums, like they're still good. But they don't raise my heart rate. It doesn't release dopamine against my will. It doesn't make my stomach drop when the tempo cuts out. It has no immediate physiological reaction. That physical impact is a huge part of what makes death metal so good. It can be quite heady and smart, and the best of it has details and secrets to learn from intense study. But what elevates it above other music which does all that is that death metal pulls it off while also being a thing that goes well with 20 beers and triggers involuntary fists in appreciation of raw power. It's a perfect blend of high and low art, caveman violence and scholarly intelligence. This new sound is lacking half the deal. Or maybe I'm the only person who actually hates this. Everyone else just likes being able to make everything out all the time. Hadn't really thought of that one. Guess that's plausible.